All right, let's get into it. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on Restoration London, a world of scandalous secrets, over-the-top fashion, and some seriously razor-sharp wit. And our guide through all this is one of the era's boldest playwrights, a man who put high society under a microscope and wasn't afraid to show every single flaw. And it all really boils down to this one question. How could a single stage play, written and performed over 300 years ago, actually manage to expose the hidden hypocrisies of an entire city's elite? Well, that's the story we're about to unpack.
So let's meet the man himself, the guy with a pen sharp enough to pull it off. We're talking about William Wycherley, a true master of social commentary who basically used the stage as his personal weapon.
See, Wycherley was born into the aristocracy, so he had a front-row seat to the very world he would later critique. He was writing during the Restoration, which was this really vibrant, chaotic time in England after the monarchy came back. The theaters, which had been shut down by the Puritans, just burst back to life. And he became famous for his biting wit and his takedowns of the very society he was a part of. And this is really what he focused on. He wasn't just writing simple jokes. He was pioneering a whole new kind of theater for a new age called Restoration comedy. It was witty, it was cynical, and it was often sexually explicit, which, perfectly mirrored the court of King Charles II. Wycherley saw this huge gap between how people acted in public, all virtuous, and what they were doing in private. He used love, marriage, and deception to put that hypocrisy on full display for absolutely everyone to see. And that brings us to his absolute masterpiece of deception. A play so scandalous and so clever, it cemented his reputation forever. The Country Wife.
At the heart of this play is a character named Harry Horner. He's a well-known man about town, a notorious womanizer. But he comes up with a plan so audacious, so brilliant in its simplicity, that it lets him completely bypass all of society's rules. And here's how he does it. It's an incredible three-step plan. First, Horner has a doctor spread a rumor that he's impotent. Second, because of this rumor, all the jealous husbands in London think he's totally safe and practically invite him to spend time alone with their wives. And third, with the husbands' guards completely down, Horner is free to seduce them, exposing not just the foolishness of the men, but the hidden desires of their supposedly virtuous wives. This whole setup leads to some of the most famous double entendres in English theater. Let's just say it gives a whole new meaning to the phrase, inspecting her china.
But this was so much more than just a dirty joke. The play is a powerful commentary on sexual hypocrisy. See, Horner's scheme reveals this massive double standard of the time. Upper-class men were often expected to be promiscuous, while their wives had to keep up this flawless public image of purity, no matter what they really wanted. Wycherley took that contradiction and made it the very engine of his comedy.
And it wasn't just the shocking plot. The play is absolutely packed with incredibly clever, fast-paced dialogue and a perfectly woven plot that made it an instant classic. It was that combination of scandalous subject matter and just brilliant writing that made Wycherley a legend.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Wycherley wasn't only interested in the power of lies. In his very next major play, he completely flipped the concept on its head, exploring the incredible social cost of telling the truth. There's this fascinating contrast in his work, right? In 1675, with The Country Wife, he shows us how a clever lie can unlock all of society's secrets. But just 1 year later, with The Plain Dealer, he explores what happens when someone refuses to lie, revealing the very high price of brutal honesty in a corrupt world.
The hero of this play is a sea captain, and his name is, fittingly, Manly. He is fiercely honest and deeply critical of all the superficial nonsense he sees. For example, he doesn't just disagree with people at court, he openly calls them fops and sycophants right to their faces, burning every social bridge he crosses. Through his struggles, the play asks a really tough question. Is it better to be honest and alone, or to be a popular liar?
And Wycherley's social critique didn't just stop with hypocrisy and honesty. He also turned his satirical eye towards another huge pillar of society, the roles and expectations placed on men and women.
Yeah, in a fascinating, lesser-known play called The Ladies' Battle, he really takes on gender roles with a vengeance, completely flipping the script and presenting women who are a far cry from the passive characters we see in so many other plays of the time.
The female characters here are assertive, they're shrewd, and they're the absolute intellectual equals of the men. They're active players who fight for control over their own lives and their own romantic destinies. In an age where women had very little social power, Wycherley's play directly commented on those frustrating limitations, all while creating a space on stage for female agency and empowerment. And that was remarkably progressive for the early 1700s. So, when you put all of that together, the biting satire, the exploration of truth and lies, the challenging of gender norms, what you get is a legacy that has just echoed through English theater for centuries.
You can actually draw a direct line of influence from it. Wycherley's work in the 1670s directly inspired the next generation of great playwrights, guys like George Farquhar and Richard Brinsley Sheraton, whose own famous comedies owe a clear debt to the standards that Wycherley set.
You know, at the end of the day, Wycherley's genius was his ability to blend that laugh-out-loud humor with some really serious commentary. He wasn't just entertaining people, he was dissecting human nature and social structures. And because the fundamental flaws he pointed out, hypocrisy, vanity, deception, are still with us, his plays feel incredibly relevant and engaging even today.
And that brings us to a final thought. Wycherley's characters lived in a world of public personas and private secrets. He showed his audience the masks that people wore to get by in their society. So the question to leave you with is this: are those same masks still being worn today?